Good morning, friends. Am I audible?
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So we'll just wait for 2 more minutes. Let's see if few more students can join. Then we'll start our lecture. Okay, welcome back. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So good morning once again. Welcome to this lecture. So in the previous class, we started our chapter 4, quantum mechanics, and we discussed some basic aspects in quantum mechanics. So we discussed what you mean by a wave function, how to interpret a wave function, discuss the various properties of the wave function, and we saw how to obtain the wave function, and we introduced the Schrodinger equation. That is, by solving this second order differential equation, we can obtain the wave function, and we also discussed what you mean by expectation values. So we have seen that the most important quantity in quantum mechanics is called the wave function. It's called the wave function, and it is a. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So the most important quantity in quantum mechanics is called the wave function, and it is nothing but the mathematical representation of the matter wave, or the wave associated with a matter particle, or it is the mathematical representation of the quantum wave, and it is normally represented by the symbol psi, and it is in general a function of the position coordinates and time. If it is a one-dimensional wave function, it will depend only on x. If it's a three-dimensional wave function, it will depend on all x, y, and z coordinate, and also on the time coordinate. And in general, this wave function will be a complex function. It will be a complex function, and as a result, we cannot associate any physical quantity with this wave function. It will be in general complex, and hence we cannot associate any physical quantity with the wave function itself, but we interpret the wave function as the modulus square, or the absolute value square of the wave function represents the probability density. It represents the probability density, and this modulus I square into dx will give the probability. It will give the probability. This quantity is the probability. It is the probability of finding the particle in a small interval dx located at the position x. So this quantity is nothing but the probability. Modulus I square into dx. Modulus I square represents the probability density. Since modulus I square represents the probability density, the wave function has to satisfy various property. Like the wave function has to be continuous, it has to be finite, and it has to be single valued. Similarly, the first derivative of the wave function must be finite, continuous, and single valued, and the wave function has to satisfy the normalization condition, that is integral modulus I square dx must be equal to 1. This again comes from the probabilistic interpretation of the wave function, since modulus I square represents the probability density, because we know that the sum of all the probabilities must be equal to 1. So that gives a constraint on the wave function, that the wave function should satisfy this normalization condition. So only those wave function which satisfy or only those functions which satisfy all these properties will be accepted as a physically acceptable wave function. And we have seen that the wave function is obtained by solving a differential equation called the Schrodinger equation. So the Schrodinger equation has the form minus h bar square by 2m d square psi by dx square plus u psi equal to E psi. This is called the one-dimensional Schrodinger equation. This is called the one-dimensional Schrodinger equation. Here h bar is h by 2 pi. It's a constant. M is the mass of the particle. Psi is the wave function. U is the potential energy of the particle or the system we are considering. E is the total energy. So if you know the potential energy of the system or the particle, so you have to substitute that expression for the potential energy in this particular differential equation and solve this second order differential equation. Once you solve it, you will get the wave function of that particular particle or that particular system. But if this wave function has to be physically acceptable, it will also have to satisfy all these properties. That is, the wave function should be finite, continuous and single value. The first derivative of the wave function must be finite, continuous and single value, and the wave function must be normalizable. Now whether suppose you are given a wave function something like this, psi is equal to x square, whether this is a physically acceptable wave function. Suppose you are given a wave function similar like this, psi is equal to x square, whether this is a physically acceptable wave function. Does this wave function satisfy all these properties? Anyone?
No, sir.
Why?
Sir, because it is not normalizable.
It is not normalizable, okay. One is it is not normalizable. Any other reason?
So it's not single values.
It is single valued. It is single valued because whatever you put in for x, whatever you substitute for x, you will get a single valued number. Suppose if I put x equal to 1, then x square is 1. X equal to 2, x square is 4. It is single value. But it is not finite, right? It is not finite for all values of x. As x tends to infinity, this wave function will also tends to infinity. As x tends to plus or minus infinity, this wave function will tend to infinity. So it's not finite. It is continuous, but it is single valued, but it is not finite and it is also not normalizable. So this particular function is not a physically acceptable wave function. What about psi of x is equal to square root of x? Whether it is a physically acceptable wave function? Anybody? Psi of x is equal to square root of x.
No, sir.
No, again, it is not finite. As x tends to plus or minus infinity, this wave function will go to infinity itself. Even if there is a square root, as x tends to plus or minus infinity, this wave function will go to infinity. And it is continuous, but it is not, again, it is not single value. It is not single valued. The square root function is not a single valued function. So this is not a physically acceptable wave function. So the wave function has to be physically acceptable. First of all, it should be a solution of the Schrodinger equation and it has to satisfy all these properties. It should be finite for all values of x. It should be continuous and single valued for all values of x. Similarly, the first derivative must be finite, continuous and single valued for all values of x or whichever is the range of the particle. And the wave function should be normalizable. So only if the given function satisfy all these three properties, it will be a physically acceptable wave function. And another important object which we have learned in the previous class is called the expectation value. Expectation value is nothing but the average value of large number of measurements. The average value of large number of measurements or the mean value of the results of large number of measurements. And you can calculate this average value or expectation value using the wave function by this formula, integral minus infinity to infinity psi star xi dx. So this formula gives the expectation value of the position, or this is the average position at which one expects to find the particle after many measurements. So the average value in quantum mechanics, you have a name, that is the expectation value. You call the average value of large number of measurements as the expectation value. So the expectation value of the position can be obtained by using this integral minus infinity to infinity psi star x psi dx. Here psi star is the complex conjugate of the wave function. So once you know the wave function, you can calculate the expectation value. So some of the applications which we will use in this chapter of the Schrodinger equation. So we will use Schrodinger equation as these applications which we will be using in this particular chapter. We can calculate the wave function for a particle in an infinite potential well, or it's called the particle in a box problem. So we'll discuss this problem soon. So that problem is called the particle in a box problem. Again, particle in a finite potential well. We'll discuss something called tunneling, and we will also discuss as an application of the Schrodinger equation, the quantum oscillator. So you have already studied classical harmonic oscillator. So we will discuss later what you mean by a quantum oscillator. So first of all, we'll apply the Schrodinger equation to a simple problem. It is called the particle in an infinite potential well, or it is also called as particle in a box problem. So let us see what is this problem. Let us define this particular problem. Let us set up the problem. So the macroscopic problem analogous to this is something like this. So first of all, we'll see what is the macroscopic problem or the classical problem. Then we will discuss the quantum problem. What do you mean by a particle in an infinite potential well? So we'll be discussing a one-dimensional well or a one-dimensional box. So what we have is a particle moving to and fro in between two rigid walls. So you can consider this as a ball. So we will first discuss the classical problem, the analogous classical problem. Then we will go to the quantum problem. That is, we first discuss a macroscopic problem. So we have a ball or an object which is moving to and fro between two rigid walls. So we have two rigid walls and an object is moving to and fro. So let us neglect any friction which is arising while the particle is moving, while the object is moving. The object is just moving to and fro between two rigid walls. So as it reaches one of the wall, since the wall is very rigid, it exerts a force on the particle, and the particle again moves to the region A as shown here, to the region A. So the particle will be just executing a to and fro motion between these two rigid walls. So this is the macroscopic problem. So here, what is the probability of finding the particle at different points in space, whether it is different or it is the same? Consider this as a classical problem. You have a ball which is just moving to and fro between these two rigid walls. Since the ball has only a finite energy, it cannot go beyond this region A, beyond this wall. The wall will exert a force on this ball and it will move back to this region A. This ball has only a finite energy. Now, what is the probability of finding this object at different points inside this well? We call this region as a potential well.
Sir, area of the potential well upon area of the box.
I didn't get you. That is the same, right? The area of the potential well, and I'm
No,
just asking.
probability, sir.
Yep.
Area of the well upon area of the whole box.
No, both are same, right? This is the
So,
well.
sir, what is that the big portion, sir?
Which one? This box I'm showing. This is This is not the. Okay, 1 minute. I've just put it inside of that. This is not the box. The potential well or particle in a box. This is the box. This is not the box. This is not the box. I've just put, this just came with a figure.
Okay, sir.
This region is called the box, potential well or the box. This region, which I have shown in the circle. I'm just asking qualitatively. You need not give me any number about the probability. What will be the probability of finding the particle at different points in space inside this well? Whether it is the same for all the points or different for different points. What is the probability of finding the ball here? What is the probability of finding the ball here? What's the probability of finding the ball here? Whether it will be the same for all the points or whether it will be different?
Different.
Sure?
At the same level it will be same, but at vertically it will be different.
No, the particle is moving only in one dimension along the x-axis. Suppose you take this axis as the x-axis, the particle is moving only along the x-axis to and fro. That is why it's called a one-dimensional box. It's called a one-dimensional box. It's a one-dimensional box. It is not a something like a cube. The box is not like a cube, a hollow cube. It's a one-dimensional box. It's again a hypothetical problem. The particle is moving only in one dimension, to and fro. Since it is just executing a to and fro motion, the probability of finding the particle at different points in space is the same inside the box. It is just doing a to and fro motion, right? Is it clear? If it is a classical particle like a ball or a macroscopic particle, the probability of finding the particle at different regions in space inside this box is same, because it is just executing a to and fro motion and there is no force acting on the particle inside the box. The only force acting on the particle is while it reaches the two rigid walls. While it reaches the rigid wall, the wall will exert a force such that the particle will move again to this region A. Similarly, if it reaches the wall at the left hand side, this wall will exert a force on the particle and it will again move back to the region A. It cannot go beyond this rigid wall because this particle has only a finite energy. So it cannot move beyond this rigid walls. That is why we say that the particle is trapped inside this potential well or this box. We treat this as a box, a one-dimensional box. So the probability of finding the particle at all points inside the well is same. It's a constant. Is it clear? The potential, the probability of finding the particle here, the probability of finding the particle here, the probability of finding the particle here. Whatever point you take inside the box, the probability is constant. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What about the energy of this particle, whether it is continuous?
It is continuous.
It is continuous. It's a classical particle. This part, whatever energy you give to this particle, you can absorb. The particle can absorb that particular energy. It can absorb any continuous value of energy. This particle can absorb any continuous value of energy. So if you throw this ball at a very high speed, it will have a high energy. If you throw this ball with a very low energy, it will have a low speed. And it will have the corresponding energy. So this ball can have any continuous value of energy. Classically, this object can have any continuous value of energy. Continuous energy. It can have continuous energy, any continuous value of energy. If you don't give any energy, this particle will have zero energy and it will be at rest. It will be at rest. So it can have zero energy, and depending on the energy of the surrounding, it can absorb any value of the energy. This particle, this classical particle, can absorb any value of energy. So the probability of finding this classical particle is constant at any point inside the well. It can have any continuous value of energy, and it can also have zero energy. In the extreme case, it can also have zero energy. So this is the characteristic of a classical particle which is trapped inside a two rigid walls. It is trapped inside a two rigid walls. Let us consider the same problem quantum mechanically. So we'll consider the same problem quantum mechanically. So instead of a ball or a macroscopic particle, we have a quantum particle which is trapped inside a potential well or a one-dimensional box. So instead of a macroscopic particle or a macroscopic object, now we consider a quantum object or quantum particle like an electron or a proton which is moving inside a one-dimensional well. So we model the one-dimensional well as shown in this figure. So instead of using a rigid wall, what we do is we divide the region where the electron is moving into three regions, 1, 2 and 3. In region 2, the electron is moving, and in region 2, electron or any quantum particle is moving, and in this region 2, the potential energy is 0. The potential energy is 0. So in region 2, which extends from x equal to 0 to x equal to L, the potential energy is 0. The potential energy is 0 means there is no force acting on the electron in this particular region. So we consider a quantum particle having mass m and a finite energy E, which is moving inside a region 0 to L along the x-axis. So the particle is moving along the x-axis from 0 to L, and in this region the potential energy is 0. The mass of the quantum particle is m and its energy is E. In the region x greater than L, the potential energy is infinity, and also in the region x less than 0, the potential energy is infinity. So in region 1, those regions we call region 1 and region 2. So in region 1, the potential energy is infinity. In region 3, the potential energy is infinity. The particle is moving in this region 0 to L, x equal to 0 and x equal to L. In that particular region, the particle is free, that is, the potential energy is 0. So the particle feels the force only while it reaches this boundary x equal to L and x equal to 0. So while the particle reaches the region x equal to L, the particle will be pushed back to the region 2. Similarly, while the particle reaches this region x equal to 0, since the potential energy is infinite in the region 1, the particle will be pushed back to the region 2. So again, this quantum particle will be executing a to and fro motion in the region 0 to L. So this problem is called the particle in a box problem, or particle in an infinite potential well, because the particle, this quantum particle, is trapped inside this potential well because it has only a finite energy. It cannot go to region 3 or region 1 because in this region the potential energy is infinite. So if this particle has to go to region 1 or region 3, it should have infinite energy. But we are giving only a finite energy to this quantum particle. So this particle will be trapped inside this potential well. We call this region as a potential well. We call this region as a potential well. So we say that this quantum particle is trapped inside this potential well. So have you understood this problem? What is this problem? The geometry of the problem?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now our aim is to find what will be the wave function of this quantum particle. So once we know the wave function, we can calculate the probability density and various other quantities. So now our aim is to find the wave function of such a particle. So this is the most simple problem you can have in quantum mechanics. A particle which is trapped inside a potential well. A quantum particle is moving in a region where there is no potential energy. So that region is x equal to 0 to x equal to L. In this particular region, the particle is completely free. In the region x greater than L, the potential energy is infinity. In the region x less than or equal to 0, again the potential energy is infinity. So this is how you define the potential energy for this particular problem, or for particle in a box problem. Now we need to find the wave function of this quantum particle. We need to find the wave function. So since in the region 1, in region 2 and region 3, we need to find the wave function of this quantum particle in all these regions. Again, that wave function should satisfy all the properties which we have discussed. We have discussed 3 properties, and this wave function should also satisfy all these 3 properties. Now, how do you obtain the wave function of this quantum particle? How do you obtain the wave function generally in quantum mechanics?
By solving
By
the
solving this problem.
Yeah, very good. By solving the Schrodinger equation. We need to solve the Schrodinger equation in region 1, region 2 and region 3. But since the potential energy is infinite in region 1 and region 3, we need not solve the Schrodinger equation. We can just guess what would be the wave function in region 1 and region 3. What's the probability of finding the particle in region 1 and region 3?
0.
Why it should be 0?
Because the walls are impenetrable.
Yeah, because the walls are impenetrable, or in other words, so that classically you can say that the walls are impenetrable, but here why it is impenetrable? Because the potential energy is infinity in region 1 and region 3. Our particle has only finite energy. It has only a finite energy. So in order to go to region 1 or region 3, it should have infinite energy to cross this potential barrier. For example, classically you can think like a ball rolling over a hill. Only if the energy of the ball is greater than the potential energy at the top of the hill, the ball can go to the other region by rolling. Similarly, if the ball has only finite energy, which is less than the potential energy at the top of the hill, the ball will just roll to a particular height and it will roll back to the same region, right? So you can think in the similar way. Our quantum particle has only a finite energy, and as a result, it cannot go to region 3 or region 1, because in this region the potential energy is infinity, because we have an infinite potential well, or infinite barrier, or a barrier of a infinite height, the potential energy barrier of infinite height. So the particle cannot go to region 3 or region 1. So what would be the probability of finding the particle in region 1 and region 3 is 0. So what will be the wave function of this quantum particle in region 1 and region 3? So what would be the wave function of the quantum particle in region 1 and region 3?
Sir, it will not be finite.
It should be finite. The wave function should be finite. We cannot have a wave function which is infinite at a particular point. The wave, that is one of the properties of the wave function. It should always be finite.
Okay, sir.
It should be finite, continuous, single value. It should satisfy all these properties. So now I have said that the probability of finding this quantum particle in region 1 and region 3 is 0. Then what will be the wave function of that quantum particle in region 1 and region 3? It is simple, very simple, right?
So psi is equal to 0.
Psi is equal to 0, good. Because the particle cannot be found in region 1 and region 3. Here in region 1, the wave function should be equal to 0, which I write psi 1 of x should be equal to 0. Similarly, psi 3 of x should be equal to 0, because there is no probability of finding the particle either in region 1 or region 3. So the wave function should be 0 in this region. So if you calculate the probability density also will be 0 in region 1 and region 3. Or in other words, the probability of finding the particle in region 1 and region 3 is 0. So the wave function itself has to be 0 in region 1 and region 3. 0 is a finite number, right? 0 is a finite number, so we need not worry. So this wave function is finite. It is also single valued. So in region 1 and region 3, the wave function is equal to 0, because the particle cannot be found in region 1 and region 3. But in region 2, the wave function is not, is it equal to 0?
No, sir.
No. In region 2, we cannot use this logic to find the wave function, because there is finite probability of finding the particle in region 2. So in region 2, in order to find the wave function, we need to solve the Schrodinger equation. We need to solve the Schrodinger wave equation. Since the potential energy is infinite, for x less than 0 and x greater than L, the wave function is 0 in region 1 and region 3. So we can write psi of x equal to 0 in this region, in region 1 and region 3. So, and because psi of x is 0 in region x less than 0 and x greater than 0, we can tell that wave function at x equal to 0 and the wave function at x equal to L also will be equal to 0. At these points, the wave function will be equal to 0 even at x equal to 0 and x equal to L at this specific point, because in all this region the wave function is 0, in all this region the wave function is 0, and as a result the wave function at x equal to 0 and x equal to L should also be 0 because of the continuity of the wave function. Now our aim is to find the wave function in region 2, the wave function in region 2. Now since there is a finite probability of finding the particle in region 2, we need to solve the Schrodinger equation to obtain the wave function. Our Schrodinger equation, if you recall, has the form minus h bar square by 2m d square psi by dx square plus u psi equal to E psi. U is the potential energy of the particle, E is the total energy. Now in this particular problem, what is the potential energy of the particle in region 2? What is the potential energy of the particle in region 2?
0, sir.
So in region 2, the potential energy is 0. So substitute u equal to 0 into this Schrodinger equation. Now this is a second order differential equation. To obtain an unique solution, how many boundary conditions we require? If you don't use any boundary condition, we'll just get a general solution. To get an unique solution, we require some boundary condition or initial conditions. So for a second order differential equation, how many boundary conditions we require?
2, sir.
We require two boundary conditions, and the boundary condition which we will use to solve the Schrodinger equation for this particular problem is psi of 0 must be equal to 0, psi of L must be equal to 0. This comes from the continuity of the wave function. This comes from the continuity property of the wave function. So this Schrodinger equation has to be solved using these two boundary conditions. Psi of 0 must be equal to 0 and psi of L must be equal to L. That is, the wave function at these boundaries must be equal to 0 because the wave function is 0 beyond this boundary, and because of continuity the wave function must be 0 at these two boundaries, at x equal to 0 and x equal to L. So this particular Schrodinger equation has to be solved using these two boundary conditions, psi of 0 equal to 0 and psi of L equal to 0. Now we will substitute the potential energy equal to 0 because we are solving this Schrodinger equation in region 2. In region 2, the potential energy is 0. So our Schrodinger equation reduces to minus h bar square by 2m d square psi by dx square equal to E psi, because we have put u equal to 0. Now what we will do, we will take all the constants to the right hand side. So h bar is a constant, 2 is a constant, m is a constant. So we will take all these constants towards the right hand side. So the differential equation becomes d square psi by dx square equal to minus 2m by h bar square E times psi. Now we will call all these quantities as k square. So we will put 2m E by h bar square as k square. So we will introduce a variable k square which is equal to 2m E by h bar square. So the Schrodinger equation reduces to d square psi by dx square equal to minus k square into psi, where k square is nothing but 2me into h bar square, 2me divided by h bar square. So the differential equation or the Schrodinger equation which we need to solve reduces to this particular form, d square psi by dx square equal to minus k square into psi. So this is a simple second order differential equation. Can you guess the solution of this differential equation? You might have come across this differential equation quite a number of times. It's a very simple second order differential equation. D square psi by dx square equal to minus k square into psi. So what is the solution of this differential equation? Anybody?
So sin x and cos x?
Very good. Sin x and cos x. You need to find a function which you differentiate 2 times, you get the same function multiplied by some constant. So sin x and cos x will satisfy this differential equation. So since this is a differential equation, any linear combination of the individual solution will also be a solution. For example, if y1 and y2 are solutions of this differential equation, y1 plus y2 will also be a solution of this differential equation, because this differential equation is a linear second order differential equation. So sine functions and cos function will satisfy this differential equation. You can see that some sin kx will satisfy this differential equation. Cos kx will also satisfy this differential equation. You can just check. If you differentiate sin kx 2 times, what you will get? You will get minus k square into sin kx. Similarly, if you differentiate cos kx 2 times, you will get minus k square into cos kx. So sin kx and cos kx will satisfy this second order differential equation. Since this is a linear differential equation, a linear combination of sin kx and cos kx will also satisfy this differential equation. So the most general solution of this second order differential equation is psi of x equal to a sin kx plus b cos kx. So the most general solution of this particular Schrodinger equation, which we have written in this particular form, is psi of x equal to a sin kx plus b cos kx. So the general form of the wave function in region 2 is a sin kx plus b cos kx. Now there are two constants, some integration constant a and b in this solution. There are two integration constants, a and b. Now, how do you find these two integration constant? Normally, suppose while you solve the differential equation, you get some integration constant along with the solutions. How do you fix the value of these integration constants normally?
Sir, we use an already given solution to find the constants. So
Not already given solution, right?
yes,
You use
sir.
something called the, what do you use?
Particular.
No, how do you find that particular solution from the general solution?
Sir, like we are given right now that phi of 0 is 0, so we'll use that,
By
and phi
taking
of
cases,
L
sir.
is 0.
Yeah, what do
By
you call
taking
that?
extreme
That
cases.
condition. Those, they are called the boundary conditions. They are called the boundary conditions. So while using the boundary conditions or initial values, you can fix this integration constants a and b. Now let us try to find what are these integration constants a and b by using the boundary conditions. So the boundary conditions which we will use is psi of 0 equal to 0 and psi of L is equal to 0. So let us use the first boundary condition, that is the value of the wave function at x equal to 0 must be equal to 0. So we need to put x equal to 0 in the left hand side and right hand side. Left hand side, psi of 0 will be equal to 0 because that is given. So apply the first boundary condition, that is psi of 0 is equal to 0. So we have to put x equal to 0 on both sides of this solution. On the left hand side, psi of 0 is equal to 0. Psi of 0 is equal to 0. Right hand side becomes a sine 0 plus b cos 0. Now sine 0 is equal to 0, cos 0 is equal to 1. So this equation tells us that the constant b must be equal to 0. The constant b which is appearing in this solution must be equal to 0. So the wave function would be just psi of x equal to a sine kx. So using the first boundary condition, we saw that the constant b must be equal to 0 for all values of x. So the wave function reduces to psi of x equal to a sine kx. Now how will you find the constant a? Using the first boundary condition, we saw that b equal to 0. Now how will you find the constant a?
Sir, we will substitute b equal to 0.
Now b equal to 0, this whole term becomes 0.
Yes, sir.
So
We will substitute psi x.
Psi is equal to 0, second boundary condition.
we have to use this, very good. We have to use the second boundary condition. From the first boundary condition, we got b equal to 0. So let us use the second boundary condition. Second boundary condition tells us that psi of L is equal to 0. That is when x equal to L, psi of L must be equal to 0. So now just let us substitute x equal to L on both sides of the equation. So what will you get if you apply x equal to L? We will get left hand side becomes 0 because psi of L equal to 0. Right hand side becomes a sine kl plus b cos kl. Now we know that b must be equal to 0 from the first boundary condition. We get that a sine kl must be equal to 0. So applying the second boundary condition, that is psi of L equal to 0, we see that a sine kl must be equal to 0. Now how can a sine kl be equal to 0? What are the possibilities if a sine kl must be equal to 0? One possibility is that this constant a must be equal to 0. Or the other possibility is that this whole function sine kl must be equal to 0. But which is acceptable physically? Either this constant a must be equal to 0 or this sine kl must be equal to 0. Now which is acceptable?
Sir, sine KL equal to 0. Sir,
Why cannot you accept that a must be equal to 0?
sir, if A is 0, then it will become, sir, in the 1 and 3rd region, which obviously we have already taken, sir. So
Yeah,
we need
very
to
good.
consider for second region.
Yeah, you are very close. If you take a equal to 0, then what we get is the wave function itself is 0 in region 2. That is, we got psi equal to a sine kx. Now if you take this a equal to 0, this whole wave function becomes 0 inside this region 2, which means that the probability of finding the particle inside this region 2 is 0, because psi square represents the probability density, psi square dx represents the probability. If psi is 0, then the probability of finding the particle in region 2 becomes 0. But that is not the case, right? There is a finite probability of finding the particle in region 2. So if you take a equal to 0, then the wave function itself becomes 0 inside this whole region 2, which is not acceptable, physically acceptable, because there is finite probability of finding the particle in region 2. The particle exists in region 2. So the wave function cannot be 0 at all points in region 2. If you take a is equal to 0, then the wave function becomes 0 inside the entire region. So what we will do is, we will just take a break now. So you will have your quiz at 8:45. So you can take a break now. So your quiz will be conducted at 8:45. Is it clear to everyone?
Yes, sir.
So we'll join after the quiz. So we can take a 2-minute break now. The quiz will be at 8:45. So after the quiz, we'll rejoin back.
So when will the quiz close?
The quiz is for 3 minutes. Again, it is not like a large derivation quiz. It is just a conceptual 2 questions, and it is in 3 minutes is enough for you to answer those 2 questions.
Sir, where is the link?
Yeah, we will just share us a notification. I'll just check.
So if it's an assignment, can you adjust the time?
Whether you got the assignment?
No, sir. No, sir. Can you adjust the time of it when we do
No,
it?
sir.
Yeah, once you get it, I will adjust.
Sir, it's here, sir.
Have you got?
Yes, sir.
Have everyone got the assignment?
No, sir. I
No,
haven't
sir.
got.
No,
No,
sir.
sir.
Haven't got, sir.
Okay, okay. Let me check.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Let me check. Let me check. 1 minute.
Sir, I got it now, sir.
Everyone?
Yeah, sir. Now we got it.
Okay.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Or just open assignments and check. No notification came. Just open assignments and check.
Just open assignments and check, everyone. Don't know why the notification is.
No, sir.
Sir, we did not get, sir.
Yeah, 1 minute. 1 minute.
Refresh it. It's there.
You won't get it in general, sir. It will only get it in assignments.
Madam, when do we have time now?
Yeah, I extended the time.
Till when?
8:52.
Okay.
Whether everybody could log into the assignment, you go to a assignment section, you can see that. Whether everyone could log in to the assignment.
Sir, I couldn't find the assignment, sir.
Go to assignments. Anyone has difficulty in finding the assignment?
Excuse me, sir, I couldn't find the link.
1 minute. Let me type.
We're not able to get the link, sir.
Yeah, 1 minute. 1 minute.
I checked the assignments tab. It is there in the assignments tab. No notification.
There in the assignment tab.
Those who are not able to log in through the assignment, I have sent a link. You can use that. So those who are not able to log in through the assignment can use the link they have sent.
ఈ టెస్ట్ నడుస్తుంది టెస్ట్ అయినాక వస్తావు.
Sir, it's not accepting the assignment.
Yes, sir, it's not accepting anymore.
Which one? Which one? The link which I have sent or
So it's saying that the form is currently not accepting responses. Could you extend it by like 30 seconds because it's still 52 and we can't submit it?
no, which form you're telling? The
The quiz, live quiz.
No. You have logged in through the link or the assignment?
Assignment.
Okay, I have extended the time. You just check once more. I have extended the time. Are you able to submit, everyone?
Yes, sir. Submitted, sir.
Okay.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I turned it in 8:49 and it just turned in late, so that won't be an issue, right?
That won't be an issue. If you are able to submit, it's fine.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Anybody facing any issue? If you are facing any issues, please tell. Yeah, someone raised your hand, right? Any doubt? Any problem with the quiz? Anyone facing any issues regarding the submission of quiz?
No, sir.
Okay. So if anyone is facing any issue, please let me know. So I guess everyone has submitted. So those who are logged in, they have submitted. Okay, then let us continue our lecture. Everyone has submitted. Whether the slides are visible? Whether the slides are visible?
Sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So what we have done is, what we are trying to do is to find the wave function of this particle in region 2. So we applied the first boundary condition. So we obtained the wave function by solving the Schrodinger equation. We saw that the wave function is of the form a sin kx plus b cos kx. And we applied the boundary condition to find these constants a and b. By applying the first boundary condition, we saw that b is equal to 0. So in this solution, b must be equal to 0 to satisfy the first boundary condition. Then we applied the second boundary condition, that is psi of L must be equal to 0. So while we applied that second boundary condition, what we obtained was a sin kl must be equal to 0. Now a sin k can be equal to 0 in two ways, either by taking a equal to 0 or by taking sin kl must be equal to 0. Now this constant a cannot be equal to 0. This constant a cannot be equal to 0 because the constant b is already equal to 0. If constant a is also 0, then this wave function itself becomes equal to 0. That cannot be physically acceptable because the particle can be found in region 2. If the wave function equal to 0, that means that the particle is not there in region 2, throughout the region 2. So the wave function itself cannot be equal to 0 for all values of x in region 0 to L. So this constant a cannot be equal to 0. The other possibility to satisfy this boundary condition is sin kl must be equal to 0. How can sin kl be equal to 0? How can sin kl equal to 0?
Equal to n pi.
What? Can you repeat?
Yeah, sir, kl is equal to n pi.
So if sin kl equal to 0, this can be satisfied only if sin kl kl must be equal to an integral multiple of pi. Kl must be an integral multiple of pi. So we write kl must be equal to n times pi, where n is an integer. N can take values 1, 2, 3, etc. So if kl is equal to n pi, this particular boundary condition can be satisfied. Sin kl will be equal to 0, or k must be equal to n pi by L. This constant k must be equal to n pi by L. So we substitute k is equal to n pi by L in this solution. So the wave function becomes psi of x equal to a sin n pi x by L. Psi of x equal to a sin kx. Now we get from the boundary condition k is equal to n pi by L. So the wave function psi of x is equal to a sin n pi x by L. Since this wave function depends upon this integer, we write a subscript on this wave function. We write psi n of x equal to a sin n pi x by L. For different values of n, we get different wave functions. For different values of n, we get different wave functions. And this n can take values 1, 2, 3, etc. This integer n is called the quantum number. It's called a quantum number. This integer n is called a quantum number. So for different values of n, we get different wave functions. So what is this quantum number will be clear in a moment. We see that the wave function depends on this quantum number n. So the wave function for a particle which is trapped inside a one-dimensional potential well is given by psi subscript n, which is a function of x, is equal to a sine n pi x by L, where L is the width of the box. Now, by using the two boundary conditions, we have not got this integration constant A. One of the integration constant we got by applying the first boundary condition, so we got b equal to 0. By applying the second boundary condition, we didn't get any value for the integration constant A, because by applying the second boundary condition, one of the choice was A equal to 0, but we cannot take that choice, A equal to 0. So in our wave function, there is this integration constant A. Now, how can you find this integration constant? Is there any way to find this integration constant? We have used both the boundary condition. Using both the boundary condition, you couldn't find what is this integration constant A. Is there any way to find this integration constant A by using any property of the wave function?
So the normalization condition.
Yeah, very good. We can use the normalization condition to fix the value of A. We know that all physically acceptable wave function should satisfy the normalization condition. That is, the integral minus infinity to infinity modulus psi square dx must be equal to 1. So that if we apply that condition, if we apply to this wave function, we can fix what would be the value of A. So that to find the constant A, we apply the normalization condition. That procedure is called as the normalization procedure, or we call that procedure as normalizing the wave function, calculating this constant A. So we know that all wave functions should satisfy this condition, integral minus infinity to infinity modulus psi square dx must be equal to 1. So the given function is a sine n pi x by L. So we substitute psi to be a sine n pi x by L. So we get integral 0 to L a square sine n pi x by L, the whole square dx must be equal to 1. So we take the limit 0 to L because the wave function in the region minus infinity to 0 is 0, and the wave function in the region x equal to L to infinity is also 0. So this normalization condition can be written as integral 0 to L a square sine square n pi x by L dx must be equal to 1. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Because psi is equal to 0 in all other region. Psi is not 0 only in the region 0 to L. So this integration limit we can write it as 0 to L. Now we have to perform this integration. Now a square is a constant. We can take it outside the integral sign. We can take a square as the outside the integral sign. So this integral is of the form integral sine square theta d theta, sine square theta d theta. So we write sine square theta as, so we know that sine square theta is equal to 1 minus 1 by 2 into 1 minus cos 2 theta. So we will use this trigonometric identity, sine square theta equal to 1 by 2 into 1 minus cos 2 theta. So this integral can be written as a square into integral 0 to L 1 by 2 into 1 minus cos 2n pi x by L dx. That must be equal to 1 from the normalization condition. Now what is this integral equal to? What's the value of this integral?
Sir, L by 2n pi sine 2n pi x by L.
Yeah, very good. So the first term is just a constant. So if you integrate the first term, it will give only a factor of x or L. So it's written here. A square into 1 by 2 is common. So the first term will be a factor of x. The second term, if you integrate, you will get a factor sine 2n pi x by L divided by 2n pi by L. Again, we have to put the limits 0 to L. Now what happens if you put the limits, upper limits and lower limits? Now put the limits, upper limit and lower limit. What about the first term?
term will get 0.
Yeah, so the first term will give you a factor of L. If you put the upper limit, x becomes equal to L. If you put the lower limit, x will be equal to 0. So the first term contributes a factor of L. What about the second term? You have sine 2n pi x by L, right? If you put the upper limit L, then you get sine, the first term becomes 0. Again, if you put the lower limit, this sine term becomes equal to 0. So this second term will not contribute anything. It will be just 0. So a square into 1 by 2. So this whole factor will be just a factor of L. So a square into 1 by 2 into L is equal to 1. If you rearrange this equation, you see that a must be equal to square root of 2 by L. So the value of a is fixed to be equal to square root of 2 by L, where L is the length of the box, So this normalization, this constant a, which is also called as the normalization constant, must be equal to square root of 2 by L. And this procedure of finding this constant a by using the normalization condition is called the normalization procedure. It's called the normalization procedure, or it's also called as normalizing the wave function. It's also called as the normalizing the wave function. So the wave function for a particle which is trapped inside a one-dimensional potential well is given by psi n of x is equal to square root of 2 by L sine n pi x by L. So this is the wave function for a particle which is trapped inside a one-dimensional potential well. Here capital L is the width of the box. It's the width of the potential well. It's a region where the particle is free. Here n, which is appearing in this equation, is an integer which can take values 1, 2, 3, etc. That n is called a quantum number. It's called a quantum number. Any doubt up to now in this derivation up to now?
No, sir.
Yeah.
No, sir.
If you have any doubt, you can ask in this derivation. So we have done. We have solved the Schrodinger equation, which is a second order differential equation. We obtained the general solution. Then we applied the boundary condition, obtained the particular solution. But again, in that solution, there was a constant a. We obtained the value of that constant a by normalizing the wave function, or by using the normalization condition. Using that normalization condition, we saw that the constant a must be equal to square root of 2 by L. So we got the complete wave function for a particle which is trapped inside a potential well. Psi n of x must be equal to square root of 2 by L sine n pi x by L. Now let us see what would be the energy of the particle which is trapped inside the potential well. What is the total energy of the particle which is trapped inside the potential well? How can you find the value of energy? Anyone? Is there any way to find the total energy of the particle? Is there any way to find the total energy of the particle?
So resubstituting on the Schrodinger's equation?
Yeah, we can resubstitute by we can resubstitute the wave function in Schrodinger equation, but we can do one more thing. We have an expression for k square. So while we solved the Schrodinger equation, we took k square equal to 2me by h bar square. So we can rearrange this equation and get an expression for energy. And while solving the Schrodinger equation, we also got a constraint that k can take only values n pi by L, where n is an integer. K can take only values n pi by L, where n is an integer. So using these two equations, we can get what would be the energy of a particle which is trapped inside the potential well. So we know that k square is equal to 2me by h bar square, or we can write this constant k is equal to square root of 2me by h bar, and we also know that k is equal to n pi by L, where n is an integer. It can take values 1, 2, 3, etc. So if we equate these two equations, we get n pi by L is equal to square root of 2me by h bar. So if you simplify, we get, if you square on both sides, n square pi square by L square must be equal to 2me by h bar square. We know that h bar is equal to h by 2 pi. So if you substitute and simplify, we get an expression for energy. Energy will be equal to h square by 8m L square into n square. Now, since this expression for energy depends on this integer n, we write a subscript n for the energy. So we get En is equal to h square by 8mL square into n square, where n can take values 1, 2, 3, etc. Only integer values. So this is the expression for energy for a particle which is trapped inside a one-dimensional potential well. Now, what can you infer from this expression for energy? What can you infer from this expression for energy?
Greater the mass of the particle, lesser will be the energy.
Yeah, that is one inference. Okay.
Sir, energy can never be negative.
Energy cannot be negative. Okay, that is also true. No, that is what
Energy is constant, sir.
energy is not constant. It's not constant.
Sir, if L is constant, sir, mass.
N varies, right? N can vary, right?
Oh,
That
yeah.
can take different values. Now, how this expression for energy is different from that of a classical particle or a macroscopic particle. We have just seen what happens if a classical particle is moving to and fro, and how this expression for energy is different from that classical particle or a microscopic particle, which is trapped again inside two rigid walls.
For
So
a
it is not a
macroscopic
constant
particle,
value.
it was constant, but here it varies
No,
according.
even for macroscopic particle, it varies. It depends on how much energy you give to that particle. If you give a larger energy to that particle will have a higher energy. It will move to and fro with higher energy. If you give only a,
It's independent of velocity.
The energy is quantized.
very good. The energy is quantized. You see that if you look at the terms which is contributing for this expression for energy, you see that the energy depends on h square, it depends on m, it depends on L, it depends on n. But all other quantities other than n are constant. H is a constant, m is a constant for a given particle, m is a constant for a given potential well, L is a constant. So all these terms which are in the bracket is a constant, and the only thing which can vary is this n. But n can take only integer values, some fixed values, 1, 2, 3, etc. So we see that the energy for a particle which is trapped inside a potential well can vary only in a discrete way. It can vary only in a discrete way. Either the energy is equal to h square by 8mL square into 1 square, or the energy is equal to h square by 8mL square into 2 square, or the energy is equal to h square by 8mL square into 3 square. So the particle can have only discrete values of energy, or we say that the energy of a particle or a quantum particle which is trapped inside a one-dimensional potential well is quantized. We have quantized energies. The energy is quantized. So this is one important difference of a quantum particle from a classical particle. A classical particle, if it is trapped inside a potential well, it can have any value of energy, any continuous value of energy. But if a quantum particle is trapped inside a one-dimensional potential well, its energy is quantized. This is one very important difference from a classical particle between a classical particle and a quantum particle. If a quantum particle is confined between two regions, its energy is quantized. Energy is not continuous but quantized. It can take only certain discrete values of energy. The energy is now discretized. Is it clear?
So,
yeah.
So what affects the value of n? Like what factors determine n is 1, 2, 3 or any other number?
No, the thing is, it can take only these values. N equal to 1 is the lowest energy the particle can be. Suppose you give some energy to the system, to a quantum system. The lowest value the particle can have is E1. N equal to, it can be the n equal to 1 state. So the value of n defines the state of the particle. The significance of this quantum number n, it defines the energy state of the particle. So if you have a quantum particle in a one-dimensional potential well, it can either be in the energy state E1, or it can be in an energy state E2. It can be in an energy state E3, etc. It cannot be in any other state in between these two energies. So the value of n fixes the value of the state. So if the particle have energy E1, then we say that the particle is in a state corresponding to n equal to 1. So is it clear to your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So the particle cannot be in any other state. It can be in a state where its energy is equal to E1. It can be in a state where its energy is equal to E2. It can be in a state where its energy is equal to E3. You cannot find a quantum particle in any other state. It can be only in these fixed states where its energy is either E1, E2, E3, E4, etc. It cannot be in any other energy state. It cannot have any other energy other than given by this expression. Because the value of n can take only integer values. It cannot have any other energy in between these. It cannot have any other value for energy. You cannot have a value of energy corresponding to n equal to 1.5 or 1.4 or 2.3 or 2.75 or any other thing. Here n can take only certain integer value. Unlike a classical particle, it can absorb any value of energy. Whatever energy you give to that system, that classical particle can absorb that energy from its surroundings. But a quantum particle cannot do that. A quantum particle, if it is in a potential well, it can absorb energy only if the energy you give is equal to E2 minus E1, or if it is equal to E3 minus E2. If the particle is in a state E1, it will absorb a value of energy only if that energy is equal to E2 minus E1. If the particle is in an energy state E3, it will absorb an energy only if absorb an energy if that energy which you give is equal to E4 minus E3, because the energy of a quantum particle is quantized or discretized. So in this way, a quantum particle behaves in a very different way compared to a classical particle. So the energy of the quantum particle is quantized. It cannot have any continuous value of energy. It can have only certain fixed value of energy. That fixed value of energy is given by this expression. En is equal to h square by 8m L square into n square. Again, this quantum number n appears in this energy expression also. It was there in the expression for wave function. It is also there in the expression for energy. N is an integer and can take only values 1, 2, 3, etc. Again, n is called a quantum number. It fixes the state of the particle. Now, what about the lowest value of energy? What is the lowest energy the quantum particle can have? What is the lowest allowed value for a particle, for a quantum particle which is trapped inside a one-dimensional potential well?
H bar square by 8 ml square.
Yeah, that corresponds to when n equal to 1. So n varies from 1, right? The lowest value n can take, this integer n can take is 1. So if I substitute n equal to 1, I get E1 is equal to h square by 8m L square. So this is the lowest value the quantum particle can have when it is trapped inside a potential well. Now, what is the inference you can draw from this? What's the inference you can draw? So this expression gives you the lowest value a quantum particle can have when it is trapped inside a potential well. Just compare this lowest value of energy to that of a classical particle, and what inference you can draw.
Pardon, sir, could you please repeat?
I said that this is the expression for the, or using this formula, you can calculate the lowest allowed value or lowest value for the energy a quantum particle can have when it is trapped inside a potential well. So this is the lowest allowed value for energy of a quantum particle which is trapped inside a potential well. Now, if you compare this expression or this value of energy to the energy of a classical particle or a macroscopic particle which is trapped inside a potential well, what inference you can draw?
The energy is inversely proportional to m.
Oh, okay. Energy is inversely proportional to m.
But energy is never zero.
That is what I wanted. The energy can never be zero for a quantum particle. For a classical particle, the lowest value of energy it could have is 0. It can be at rest. If I don't give any energy to the particle which is moving to and fro, suppose I take a particle and keep it inside a potential well, a macroscopic particle will stay where it is. It can have energy equal to 0. But a quantum particle if it is trapped inside a potential well, it cannot have an energy equal to 0. It will have some finite energy, even in its lowest energy state. So for a quantum particle, the lowest energy state means it is not a 0 energy state. The quantum particle which is trapped inside a potential well cannot have energy equal to 0. The lowest value the energy can have is h square by 8 ml square. So it will have this amount of finite energy. It will not have a 0 energy. Now this is a very small value of energy, but still it is a finite value. So it will have a finite value of energy even in its lowest energy state. So the lowest energy state is not a 0 energy state for a quantum particle. Unlike a classical particle, the lowest energy state is not a 0 energy state. So this is one important aspect of a quantum particle. Even in its lowest energy state, it will have some finite energy. And this finite energy is called the 0 point energy or the ground state energy. So the 0 point energy is not equal to 0, or the ground state energy is not equal to 0 for a quantum particle. So this is another important difference between a classical particle and a quantum particle, or a quantum system and a classical system. So one important aspect we have already seen, that energy is quantized. For a quantum particle, the energy is quantized. Energy cannot have any continuous, it cannot take any continuous value. It will have only certain discrete value. Only certain discrete values are allowed for energy. And again, the lowest possible energy is not equal to 0, but some finite value. That lowest energy is called the ground state energy or the 0 point energy. So the lowest allowed value, the lowest energy value corresponds to n equal to 1 in this expression. That is nothing but E1, which is equal to h square by 8m L square. So this energy, the lowest energy, is called the ground state energy for a particle which is trapped inside a potential well. Now since this energy is not equal to 0, since E1 is not equal to 0, we say that the ground state energy is non-zero, and since the ground state energy is non-zero, the quantum particle can never be at rest. It will have some sort of motion even in its lowest energy state. Unlike a classical particle which can be at rest, a quantum particle can never be at rest. It will always have a 0 point energy or the ground state energy, some finite ground state energy. Since it has non-zero ground state energy, a quantum particle, we say that a quantum particle can never be at rest. So we have seen two important differences between a classical particle and a quantum particle. The energy of a quantum particle is quantized. For a classical particle, the energy is continuous. A classical particle can be at rest and the lowest value of energy it can have is 0. But for a quantum particle, the quantum particle cannot be at rest because its ground state energy is not equal to 0. It will have some finite ground state energy which is non-zero. So that energy is also called as 0 point energy. So this is a very peculiar difference between a quantum system and a classical system. So any doubt? So this is how the nature behaves in the quantum level. We cannot say how this 0 point energy arises. What is the reason for this 0 point energy? The only thing is we can calculate using quantum mechanics. We can calculate what is that 0 point energy. Now, what is the reason for this 0 point energy is still not known. But it is seen that a quantum particle has a non-zero ground state energy. Even in its lowest energy state, it will have some finite energy. That lowest energy state doesn't correspond to a 0 energy state. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, what about the wave function and the probability density? Suppose you plot the wave function for the particle inside the box. How it will look? How it will look?
Sir, a harmonic wave.
Yeah, it will look like a harmonic wave. So we can plot the wave function for different values of n. So n equal to 1 corresponds to the ground state of the particle. So we see that the wave function depends on this quantum number n, and also the energy depends upon this quantum number n. N equal to 1 corresponds to the ground state of the particle, the lowest energy state. N equal to 2 corresponds to the first excited state. N equal to 3 corresponds to the second excited state, and so on. The first excited state, the energy will be equal to 4 times C1. The second excited state, the energy will be equal to 9 times C1, and so on. So those things you can calculate using this expression. If you put n equal to 1, you get the energy of the first excited. If you put n equal to 1, you get the energy of the ground state. If you put n equal to 2, you get the energy of the first excited state. If you put n equal to 3, you get the energy of the second excited state, and so on. So using that, you can show that if E1 is the energy of the ground state, first excited state energy is 4 times C1, second excited state the energy is 9 times C1, third excited state the energy is 16 times C1, and so on. Similarly, if the wave function depends upon this quantum number n, if I put n equal to 1, I get the wave function for the ground state. If I put n equal to 2, I get the wave function for the first excited state. If I put n equal to 3, I get the wave function for the second excited state, and so on. Similarly, if I take the modulus psi square, I get the probability density. If I plot the wave function and the probability density for various states, it will look like this as shown in this figure. So the first is the energy level diagram. So first I have the ground state. For value n equal to 1, the energy is E1. For n equal to 2, the energy is E2. For n equal to 3, the energy is E3, which is 9 times E1. N equal to 4, the energy is represented as E4, which is 16 times E1. So this diagram is called the energy level diagram. And you see that the lowest energy corresponds to n equal to 1 is E1, and E1 is not equal to 0. E1 is not equal to 0. So we don't have an energy level which is equal to 0 for a particle which is trapped inside a potential well. So this energy level will not exist for a quantum particle, a level which corresponds to E equal to 0. What about the spacing between the energy level, whether it increases or decreases as the quantum number n increases? As the quantum number n increases, what about the spacing between different energy levels?
Increases.
It increases, right? Because we know the expression En is proportional to n square. So as n increases, the spacing between the energy levels also increases. Spacing between the energy level increases. So this diagram is called the energy level diagram. It's called the energy level diagram for a particle confined to a one-dimensional potential well or a one-dimensional box. So while you draw this diagram, you have to be careful. The spacing should increase as n increases. So the particle can be in an energy level E1, it can be in an energy level E2, it can be in an energy level E3, and so on. But it cannot be in a level having energy in between any two these energy levels. It cannot be anywhere in between these energy levels. The energy is quantized. The energy is quantized. So the second plot gives the plot of the wave function. We know that psi n of x is equal to square root of 2 by L sin n pi x by L. If I put n equal to 1, I get the wave function for the ground state. If I put n equal to 2, I get the wave function for the first excited state. If I put this integer equal to 2, if I put this integer n equal to 3, I get the wave function for the second excited state. So the ground state wave function will look like this. The first excited state wave function psi 2 will look like this. We have one node. Psi 3, which is the wave function for the second excited state, will look like this. There are two nodes. So the points where the wave function equal to 0, they are called as nodes. They are called as nodes. So for the ground state, there is no node. For the first excited state, the wave function will have one node. For the second excited state, the wave function will have two nodes. What about the third excited state? How many nodes it will have? If you plot psi 4, how many nodes it will have?
Three.
It will have 3 nodes. It will somehow look like this. It will have 3 nodes. It will have 3 nodes, and so on. So once you know the wave function, you can plot the probability density. So once you have the wave function, probability density is nothing but modulus psi square. So if you take the modulus psi square of the right hand side, you get the probability density as 2 by L sine square n pi x by L. So this is the expression for the probability density. So the wave function is square root of 2 by L sine n pi x by L. The probability density is nothing but modulus psi square. So you get the probability density as 2 by L into sine square n pi x by L. So if I put different values of n, I will get the probability density corresponding to different quantum state. For n equal to 1, I will get the probability density of the ground state. If I put n equal to 2, I will get the probability density of the first excited state, n equal to 3, the probability density of the second excited state, and so on. So the probability density for the ground state will look like this, as shown in this figure. The probability density for the first excited state will look like this, as shown in this figure. Similarly, the probability density for the third excited state. For the second excited state. Again, what will be the probability density outside the box in the region x greater than L or x less than 0? What would be the probability density?
0, 0.
It will be 0. It will be like this. It will extend to 0. It will be 0 because the probability of finding the particle outside the box is 0, or the wave function outside the box is 0. So if you extend the wave function outside the box, it will be 0 in all this region. It will be 0. So the region outside the box, the wave function and the probability density will be equal to 0. So looking at this probability density, how can you compare this probability density with that of a classical particle? What peculiar nature you find for a quantum particle compared to a classical particle? What's the difference you find?
It's not constant.
It is not constant, right? Very good. We saw that for a classical particle, the probability of finding the particle at any point inside the box was constant. So if you plot the probability density for a classical particle, it will be something like this, which is a constant. It will be a straight line. So the probability of finding the particle here is same that of here, that of here. So the probability of finding the classical particle at any point inside the box was a constant. But here, you see that the probability of finding the particle, of finding a quantum particle inside a potential well is not constant. And also it depends upon the value of energy, in which state the particle is. If the particle is in its ground state, the maximum probability of finding the particle would be at which point? At which point you have the maximum probability of finding the particle? If it is in its ground state. Can anybody tell?
X is equal to L by 2.
X equal to L by 2, because this is the probability density for the ground state. This graph gives the probability density for the ground state, and it is maximum at x equal to L by 2. The probability density is maximum at x equal to L by 2. So if the particle is in its ground state, the maximum probability of finding the particle would be at the point x equal to L by 2, and it would be almost equal to 0 near the walls. Near the endpoints, the probability density is 0. So there would be minimum probability of finding the particle at the edges, at the edge of the box. So if the particle is in its ground state, the maximum probability of finding the particle would be at x equal to L by 2. What about if the particle is in its first excited state? If the particle is in its first excited state, where the particle...
Sir, at x equal to L by 4 and 3L by 4.
And minimum probability?
At L by 2.
And L by 2.
And edges.
Yeah. So we see a very strange phenomenon. If the particle is in its first excited state, the maximum probability of finding the particle would be at L by 4 and 3L by 4. And it would have a minimum probability at x equal to L by 2 and at the edges. So the probability of finding the particle will also depend on which state the particle is, or in what is the energy of the particle. So the probability density also depends on energy. If the particle is in its ground state, the maximum probability of finding the particle would be at x equal to L by 2. If the particle is in its first excited state, looking at the probability density for the first excited state, I can tell the probability density is maximum at x equal to L by 4 and x equal to 3L by 4. So the maximum probability of finding the particle would be at x equal to L by 4 and x equal to 3L by 4 if the particle is in its first excited state. and there would be no probability of finding the particle at x equal to L by 2 and near the edges of the box. So the similar thing can be said for the second excited state. So the maximum probability would be at these particular points of finding the particle, and there would be minimum probability of finding the particle at these points. So a quantum particle behaves in a very strange way compared to a classical particle. So just by looking at the simple problem, we can see a lot of differences between a classical particle and a quantum particle. So for a classical particle, the energy is continuous. Yeah.
The break has started.
Yeah. I'll just stop here. We'll continue in the next class. So if you have any doubt, you can ask. So I'll just download the attendance and you can leave. 1 minute. So we'll stop here. We'll continue in the next class. I've downloaded the attendance. So the class is officially over. So if you have any doubts, you can stay back. Others can leave the